Okay, so just for fun, we're going to make some Philly cheesesteaks here on the griddle. So we have played around with a lot of different kinds of bread. We're trying a smaller bread this time just because we've discovered we get some of the bigger hoagie rolls, and Justine and I just cannot eat that big of a sandwich. So we've got some diced onions, some diced pepper. I just put down some butter. I use butter instead of oil this time. I just do the stick of butter, literally smear it all over. Thank you, Ben. Ben's making all kinds of noise while I'm doing this. So anyway, pepper, onion on there. We're going to saute that up. You'll notice there's less pepper than onion, and that is because Justine does not like the peppers. So we're going to probably end up splitting this in half here. And I will get all the peppers. She'll get more onion. So we have been playing around with a couple different kinds of steak for the Philly cheesesteaks. This has been so far the most successful. It's the least greasy that we've experienced so far. It is frozen. If you go to H-E-B, it's over there with all the chicken nuggets and stuff like that. They come out in like little steaks. I'll show you in a little bit when I cook them. And then they kind of chop up real nicely into these thin pieces. I want to try it with some fresh steak, but I haven't done that yet. But these have worked really nicely. We like the sandwiches. We've tried Steakums. Don't do Steakums. They are so greasy and so nasty. We couldn't even finish one sandwich because they were so greasy. So this is your best bet if you're going to do frozen. Okay, so I think our veggies are pretty close to being where I want them. So I'm going to push them off to the side. So here's Justine's. She doesn't want the peppers. So I'm going to kind of push that up here. I don't know if you've discovered this yet, but there are hot spots in your griddle. And those hot spots are typically more in the middle, right here. But you also tend to have, well, I at least have one side that tends to be a little hotter than the other. And I know my left-hand side over here runs hotter than my right-hand side. And so I use my left-hand side to do some of my hotter cooking. Right-hand side, I just kind of use to keep warm. So I'm going to throw my vegetables up here in these corners. Those are going to be the least hot zones. And so they could sit there and continue to cook. All right, but they're not going to get overcooked sitting there. So like I said, those steaks, here's the ones we like. See how they come in these like weird little steak puck things? Oh, I forgot. Before I do that, you need to add some more butter down. So like I said, I just use a stick of butter here, rub it all over here. Nice and buttery. All right, so we're gonna take our little steak pucks here. So you'll notice Justine and I have these two smaller, these are not big paper plates, they're the kind of the smaller paper plates. I would say medium-sized paper plates, I should say. So they're not very big sandwiches, but we're gonna plan to have two sandwiches, and we're kind of thinking one little steak puck per sandwich is probably a good bet. Okay. I'm just gonna throw them down on there. So these take a few minutes they're frozen. So they're going to take a couple minutes to just kind of thaw out. And as they're thawing, what will happen is they'll actually start to break apart. So you see how it's starting to brown on this side here? So these are not obviously actual steaks. So they are shredded pieces, almost like a Steakums. But they need to thaw out completely. So cook them a little on both sides and they'll start to fall apart. Okay, so as you can see, these have started to cook down enough where they're starting to come apart some. So you can actually start to pull them apart with the spatula. See how they come out in these little ribbons? So I'm going to work on trying to pull these apart, kind of getting them separated so we can cook it all the pieces all the way through. And then in a few minutes, we'll incorporate our vegetables into this. Okay, so we got our steaks. You'll notice I kind of combined the two steaks. Here's Justine, here's me. Okay, so we got our steaks kind of cooked. They're for the most part cooked through. So I'm going to take, Justine wanted just onion in hers, so I've got onion here. And I'm going to kind of start to mix in there with hers. And then I've got my onion and pepper mixture here. And I'm going to mix it with mine. So I'm going to work on these, start kind of incorporating them as best as possible, mixing them up, and then we'll be adding cheese next. We have the vegetables incorporated. See how I kind of spread them out there? So we're going to add some provolone cheese here. We like it to be nice and cheesy. So thinking anywhere from 3 to 4 per pile of meat here. I think 3 might be enough. So we're going to let that kind of cook. So I'm going to move this over because remember my left side is my hotter side here. Kind of move that to the left. Adjust my cheese so it doesn't totally melt to the grill here. So while that's cooking, we need to toast our bread because I want it nice and toasted. We want some butter on it. So I'm going to take my butter here. Hold on just a second. I'm trying to hold my phone and do this at the same time. Justine abandoned me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw some butter down here. Just kind of rub it on there real good. Get a nice amount of butter there. And we're going to open up our bread. Kind of rub that in that butter. And let that toast. Remember, this side of my griddle is not as hot as the left side. So it's not going to get like burnt or anything on there. But it should get it nice and toasted and buttery, which will be just perfect for these steak and cheese sandwiches. So we got our bread going there. We got our cheese starting to melt here. Okay, so we're about ready to start assembling here. We're getting some toasted bread here. Still waiting on that to toast. We got our cheese almost melted. So what we're gonna do, we like mayo on our Philly cheesesteak. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my bottoms off here. Have them ready to go on the sandwich. And so I'm now going to cut these in half, and I'm going to put half on each of these bread halves down here while the tops continue to toast in that butter. Okay, all right, let's take a minute. I've gotten them off the grill. Take a minute and kind of appreciate the glorious mess that these sandwiches make. Nothing like a good, messy, cheesy sandwich. So we've got our toasted tops here. We're going to put mayo on those when we get them inside. But there you go. Philly cheesesteak sandwiches.